Most investments fail in a recession. That is not a statement meant for dramatic effect. It is a quiet fact, one that echoes through the empty halls of once thriving businesses and the anxious conversations around dinner tables when the economy contracts. People believe they are safe, until the floor gives way beneath them. They construct portfolios based on the calm weather of a bull market, forgetting that storms are an inevitable part of the financial climate. These assumptions, these myths of permanent safety, are where the greatest dangers lie. They are the cracks in the foundation that go unnoticed until the entire structure begins to shudder under the strain of a real crisis. This is not about hype. There is no need for exaggeration. The market itself is a harsh and unforgiving teacher. A recession is not a single, isolated event. It is not a headline you read one morning and forget the next. It is a cascade of interconnected failures, a slow-moving but powerful tide that pulls everything down with it. It begins with whispers of slowing growth. Then it becomes a reality as companies begin to shrink. Jobs are cut, first in the vulnerable sectors, then spreading like a contagion through the broader economy. The loss of income is the first shockwave, the one that directly impacts households and their ability to function. This is the stark, human cost of an economic contraction, felt in terminated positions and dwindling opportunities. As incomes fall, credit tightens its grip. The easy lending that fueled the boom years disappears almost overnight. Banks become cautious, hesitant to extend new loans and sometimes calling in existing ones. This creates a liquidity crisis. Suddenly, access to cash becomes paramount, yet it is harder to come by. In times of turmoil, people instinctively turn to cash. There is a primal logic to this impulse. Cash is simple, it is tangible, or its digital equivalent is immediately accessible. You can use it to buy groceries. You can use it to pay the rent. You can use it to fix a broken-down car. Cash sits outside volatile stock market swings, a quiet refuge from rising and falling prices. Holding cash avoids market risk entirely. For many, that avoidance brings real psychological relief. It's the comfort of knowing you can meet immediate needs tomorrow, regardless of markets. However, that safety is not absolute. Cash carries subtle but persistent risks. In an extreme crisis, access to physical currency or bank deposits can become complicated. Banks may impose withdrawal limits or face operational disruptions. The more common risk is the slow erosion of purchasing power from inflation. People have trusted gold for millennia. It is a form of money that transcends governments and currencies. Its appeal is timeless, deeply ingrained in our collective psyche. It shines. It feels substantial in your hand. It cannot be printed into oblivion by a central bank. This enduring history gives gold its powerful image as a safe haven. When confidence in paper money or the financial system falters, investors often flock to gold. They believe it will hold its value as other assets crumble. It is seen as the ultimate store of value, a final backstop against catastrophic economic failure. Government bonds are often considered one of the safest investments available, and for good reason. The logic is straightforward. Powerful tools at its disposal. It has the authority to levy taxes on its entire economy, and in most cases, it has the ability to print its own currency to meet its obligations. This unique position gives its debt a high degree of creditworthiness. Investors buy government bonds for their perceived safety and the predictability of their payments. You lend the government money, and in return, it promises to pay you a fixed amount of interest over a set period and return your principal at maturity. During a recession, the role of government bonds becomes even more pronounced. As investors flee from riskier assets like stocks, they often seek refuge in sovereign debt, particularly short-term bonds issued by major economies like the United States. This flight to quality can cause the price of existing bonds to rise, especially if the central bank is cutting interest rates to stimulate the economy. Some corners of the stock market are more resilient than others. These are the defensive sectors, comprised of companies that provide essential goods and services people need regardless of the economic climate. Think of utilities that provide electricity, water, healthcare companies that supply life-saving medicines, or consumer staples firms that sell food and household products. The demand for these offerings does not disappear in a recession. People still need to keep the lights on, take their prescribed medications, and buy groceries. This steady, non-discretionary demand provides these companies with more stable revenue streams and predictable cash flows, even during a downturn. During a recession, this stability becomes highly attractive. While the broader market may be in turmoil, the revenues of defensive companies tend to hold up better. This often translates into lower stock price volatility compared to more cyclical sectors like technology. In a world of digital ledgers and complex financial instruments, there is a deep-seated comfort in owning something real. Real assets are tangible things you can see and touch, such as property, farmland, oil, grain. Their appeal as a safe haven comes from this very physicality. They cannot be created out of thin air, and they serve a fundamental economic purpose. A piece of land is finite. A barrel of oil is needed to fuel transport. This inherent utility and scarcity can provide a hedge against inflation, as the prices of real things tend to rise along with the general cost of living. In a recession, the performance of real assets can be a mixed bag. A rental property can provide a steady stream of cash flow from tenants, offering an income source independent of the stock market. The greatest threat to your portfolio during a recession may not be falling corporate profits, rising unemployment. The greatest threat is often your own emotional response to those events. Fear is the market's most powerful and destructive force. When asset prices are in free fall and headlines are filled with doom, a primal instinct to flee takes over. This fear leads to panic selling, the act of liquidating assets at the worst possible moment, not as part of a rational plan, but as a desperate attempt to stop the pain. This single emotional decision can inflict more permanent damage on your wealth than the market decline itself. This individual panic is amplified by herd behavior. Humans are social creatures, and we look to others for cues on how to act, especially in times of uncertainty. When we see everyone else selling, it validates our own fear and creates immense pressure to join the stampede. Financial news. The path to surviving a recession is paved with practical, unexciting rules. It begins not with investments, but with your personal balance sheet. The first and most important rule is to build an emergency fund. This is your non-negotiable buffer. Before you invest a single dollar in anything else, you must have a pool of cash set aside that can cover your essential living expenses for several months. This fund is your primary defense against a job loss or unexpected bill, preventing you from ever becoming a forced seller of your long-term assets. Keep this fund in the most liquid and boring places possible: savings accounts, short-term deposits. With your emergency fund in place, the next principle is to structure your finances to withstand a shock. This means keeping a significant portion of your capital in highly liquid, high-quality assets. It means avoiding high levels of leverage, especially consumer debt or margin loans used to buy volatile investments. Recessions are not an aberration. They are a recurring and necessary part of the economic cycle. They serve to test every plan, every assumption, every investor. They reward the disciplined, the prepared, and they punish greed, haste, a lack of foresight. In these challenging times, your primary goal shifts from seeking profit to ensuring survival. Glory is for bull markets. Survival is the victory condition of a bear market. Capital preservation is the absolute priority. The capital you save is what you will invest.